How's everybody doing today? This is Corey Lee's Boxing, and we are back with another banger. Wow, man, we got today on the show, man. We got ITR Boxing, man. Big dog Lukey, man. He is here. What state you from, Lukey, man? Let everybody know.
California.
Are you from California? Okay, yeah. So I'm out here in the East Coast, out here in the DMV area. So wow, man. I love your breakdowns, man. I've been a fan of the show for a while. We've been trying to get this live stream to work for a couple months now, a couple weeks now. But we here though, man. Wow, man, I don't even know where to start, man. We could just start with the Triple G versus Canelo, man. It's been hot on my radar, man. I really like the build up to this fight, man. The build up was been crazy. Even the grand arrivals, was kind of crazy to me. What do you think about the fight, man? And does Triple G have a strong chance, man? I hear a lot of other shows like Ringside Reporter and a couple other shows. They're not really giving Triple G the callers and stuff. A lot of people are not giving Triple G, a chance. It's definitely a betting chance, in this fight. All of the money's going to Canelo, man. And how do you see this fight going down, man?
I mean, I think Golovkin's got a real chance because he's never had been blown out by Canelo, right? So it's like basically all people are banking on is that he's getting old, but he's 40 years old, and then they're saying he's looked bad in his last fights. I think he's been saving himself for this fight. He's not going to fight a Murata the same way he's going to fight Canelo. He only has like one hard training camp probably left in his body. He could get old overnight. I think like the biggest variable is when he goes to 168, Corey Lee Boxing, who I enjoy your content, is that he goes up, he might lose he might be slower. When guys move up, they can be healthier, but they can actually sometimes be a little bit sluggish putting on that extra weight. So I think that's the thing. But Canelo traditionally struggles with guys who can keep a good jab on him. We saw Caleb Plant have success. We've seen Austin Trout, Landy Lara. We saw Billy Joe Saunders. There's many different eras of Canelo, but the one constant is he doesn't like an active jab. Golovkin at any point is going to have a thunderous big jab. And unless he doesn't have that jab anymore, I think that jab is going to make this fight relatively competitive.
Damn, man. So you feel like the jab is going to play a key factor in this fight, man? Both fighters, you got to understand Triple G's 40. Will age play a factor into this fight as well, man?
Well, I mean, to me, what played a factor in it is Canelo lost to Bivol. And it's like he's looking at like, man, I got to make some money. I like the way I live. My life is awesome. I got to be in a fight people care about. He can't just fight any rinky-dink guy after losing to Bivol. So I think, yes, the age factors in, but it's also Canelo wants to make a lot of money. And it's like the networks, basically DAZN, when it was founded, this is the fight they founded DAZN on. They wanted this fight to be on streaming. Now it's on pay-per-view. We're finally getting the fight, but I think that Canelo has some unanswered questions no one's talking about, right? Let's say Golovkin starts out and the fight's 2-1 Golovkin. We're assuming Canelo's not going to go to a dark place and be like, oh crap, this is the Bivol fight all over again. We've never seen Canelo, because Canelo's getting a little arrogant, right? It looks like he's running his own camp. It looked like he bought into his hype, and it looks like he thinks he's invincible. It's curious because Golovkin's being counted out, and most people are saying, oh, he's going to get stopped, which I don't see. Basically, Golovkin's in that position you never want to face a guy at this level. He has nothing to lose. Everyone's basically looking at him as a journeyman fighter, even though this is a competitive fight. If Canelo goes down in this fight just on points, how does Canelo respond to that with the perception of the world saying he's going to stop this guy?
Man, that's what I'm saying, man. It's so many different variables. That's why I'm hype. A lot of people around me, like, I got some of my casual friends hype about the fight, man, and everything like that. But I am hype about this fight, man. I am really hype about this fight. There's so many different, variables. Being that, like you said, the jab of Triple G is very underrated in my eyes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the guy comes out and he's working. Even though you think he's not working, if you go back and study his film study, he's been pumping that jab out, in all of the two fights with Canelo. So what makes us think that he won't do it in the third fight? His jab has been a very good, you know, a key factor into his game plan, man. It's his jab. Triple G is more of a jab first, and then I feel like bang second kind of guy. You know what I mean? He's a lot of people think he's like a seek and destroy, which if he sees you hurt, he will. But I just think that right now Triple G is at that point in his life, man. I mean, who wants to keep getting hit like that? And I said that on Ringside Reporter. The other day, and I was on Monterio's show, and I said that as well. That's what I said it on there. I called in there for the first time, and so when I called in there, I was just like, look, man, Triple G. A lot of people think they're not giving Triple G a chance, but the more I think about it, and the more I study this fight, Triple G has a good chance. In my eyes, I just don't. I feel like if it goes in the later rounds. I mean, I'm favoring Canelo in the later rounds. What about you? Beatrice Beast, what's happening, man?
Well, I mean, I gotta touch my polo beanie. Hey, man, shout out my man Betts. I can't say your first part of your name because sometimes I say names wrong. But shout out Corey Lee, shout out ITR Boxing. I got a book on Amazon coming out next week. Be sure to go get it. But back to what I'm saying is, I think there's a misconception with boxing fans where if a guy's an offensive fighter, and I'm a big Joe Calzaghe fan, most people listening will probably go, who's Joe Calzaghe? But he was one of the only white guys when I was growing up that was actually beating people up. Yeah. And there was always this belief, oh, Joe can't box, right? Because Joe's slapping or Joe's this. When guys are offensive, we don't want to call it. There's a bias to not call it boxing. Golovkin has a very high ring IQ. He uses his jab, but he's not just coming in like Margarito. He's setting traps. He's an Olympic silver medalist. He's a guy who's I always compare him to like a great white shark. Like he's setting up traps to make you vulnerable. And then when you're defenseless, then he goes to really hurt you. And if he doesn't fear any of the power, you might see him more reckless. Like you see him with a Daniel Giel. But as he's gotten to the higher level, it's like he's not the fastest guy in the ring, but he's very cerebral. I think the problem is when he was coming out, people compared him to like Marvin Hagler, and he's simply not Marvin Hagler. Like that's the issue is if you compare Golovkin to Hagler, it's not there. But to get back to what you're saying,
I feel you on that.
But like, I mean, I think that's the issue is like if you say like, okay, Golovkin's like a top 3 middleweight, I mean, he might be, but my bias growing up seeing Hagler and James Toney, it's just going to be hard to put someone there without seeing how his resume ages. That being said, in terms of cardiovascular conditioning, it's going to really come down to who's the general in this fight, right? Because Canelo in the second fight made an effort to push Golovkin back, and Golovkin did a good job. In my opinion, he won both fights, and the reason he won both fights is you never saw him on the ropes. If a guy's coming forward and he's not on the ropes, that means he's effectively moving and turning, and if he's not eating big shots, he's literally boxing someone. The issue I see, and to make a short answer long, is I think that the person that's going to fatigue first is going to be either the one that sustains more punishment or is inactive, because both of these guys struggle with activity. In the first 2 fights, they don't throw a ton of punches. That's a big downside to both these guys. Canelo's not some big volume guy. He's just going to load up, right? When he fights guys like Billy Joe, Caleb, he's losing rounds because he's loading up and he has a sheer belief, when I hit you, it hurts and you're going to be in trouble. Golovkin's 40. He's not going to be pitching like he's Nolan Ryan when he's 23. This is going to be a guy that's on a punch count. This is a guy that's going to be in there. I think that a big thing about this is going to be who's more active, and does that activity hurt the fighter that's more active later in the fight? That's something I'm watching as a spectator to see how that goes along.
Man, that's a good breakdown too with that, wow. I mean, like you said, Triple G, cardiovascular system and everything like that. A lot of people saying that, something that has to do with his glands or something in his stomach. One of the callers said something about that, about Triple G. When you get older, getting hit to the body. it's hard for you to absorb those punches like you were when you were in, I guess your, 20s, in early 30s, I guess. He's saying that, Triple G is susceptible to the
But
body, and I feel like he is too.
Corey, I got to interrupt you. He's been getting hurt to the body since the Willie Monroe Jr. fight. Like when Willie fought him, he was making some noises ringside, and he didn't like it. This is
For
not
real?
a guy that's been like he has a legendary chin, but he's not a guy that's been known as a body guy. If you look at his midsection, pause, he's never been some super cut up guy. Like this,
Yeah,
like the thing is, we've never really seen how Golovkin responds to body shots because no one until Derevyanchenko, no one until Willie Monroe, none of Danny Jacobs did it to him. A lot of these guys never wanted to stand with him or be close enough to hit his
yeah,
body. So, I
yeah,
mean, I think
yeah.
that as
You
he's
gotta
slowing,
pay for that. You gotta pay for that.
exactly, and
Yeah, you
not a
gotta
lot of
pay for
people,
that. You
and you gotta walk through hell,
you
you
gotta
know,
pay for that.
you gotta walk through hell to get to heaven in that instance. You know what I
Yeah, you
mean? And
gotta
it's
pay
like,
for that. Yeah.
and I think that people forget Daniel Jacobs really, like when he fought Golovkin, he was fighting Godzilla. After Daniel Jacobs, after Sergey Derevyanchenko, after Canelo, the mystique of Golovkin slowly has been minimalized to the point where people forget how big he was in his prime. But I do think Golovkin's always had issues with his body. I don't think this is just a new revelation. So I just want to interrupt you and say that I think that it's might be getting worse, but I think that's always been something about Golovkin that he doesn't like getting hit to the body.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, when I seen Triple G get hurt in the Murata fight, man, it really opened my eyes, man. It really did. Shout out to Mike Big Boxing. Let's go, baby. What's going on, man? I don't get on my live streams because I work overnight or so, like sporadically. It might take 30 minutes for like all them people to come in, but it's just I don't know. It's just the way my algorithm's set up, man. I work
It's
night shift, man.
It's all good. I just want to
Yeah.
say shout out to everybody that's tuning into this, and I'm having a fantastic time talking with my guy Corey Lee. My day started off really random. My friend had a personal emergency, and I had to Venmo someone some money to help them out. So it's like to jump on here, my mind's racing, going all different places, but you always got to support people you care about. You always got to start out with good deeds. You got to look out.
Yeah.
Loyalty is my kryptonite. And I'm glad to be able to talk with Corey Lee Boxing during my lunch break. We've been meaning to do it. You probably thought I was ducking and dodging, but this is fun.
Nah. But yeah, man. Shout out to Brian in the chat, man. Everybody coming through. Smash that like button when you guys come in, man. Definitely ring that doorbell as Blue Blood says it. but yeah, man. Like I said, man. I really think that Triple G. I think that a big part to this fight is Triple G's jab number one, and is Triple G going to be susceptible to the body number two? These are two good, I feel like, notes that you have to note when you're betting too. A lot of these guys are going to be betting on this fight. I feel like this is going to be a high betting, type of fight, man, because I feel like a lot of guys in Vegas and, the fight's going down. Isn't the fight going down in Vegas?
T-Mobile Arena. I was trying to send out the link of the show so I could put it out on my Twitter feed, but T-Mobile Arena, and I think
do
like
that. I'll rip it while you do that. All right.
I just wanted to say, the big thing about this fight is there's a narrative that Canelo's going to stop Golovkin, and it's reminding me of when Floyd Mayweather, people said, oh, Floyd's going to stop Canelo. Remember, I don't know if you remember those days, but there were rumors, oh, bet the under.
God damn.
I mean, that was because people thought at the time.
People thought that he was going to stop Canelo?
On the ropes. They thought, oh, Canelo gasses out late. Floyd's going to volume. There were a lot of talks. And to me, I just don't see either of these guys fatiguing like that. Because I think that even if one guy gets dominated in this fight, I think they have enough elite attributes mentally to not get stopped by the other guy because they don't want to get stopped by that guy. So it's going to be like one of these things where they're like, I do not want Golovkin or Canelo, vice versa, to be able to say I stopped him in the final fight. Like, I think that both guys will will through.
It's a lot riding on this fight, but you got to understand, man. I've seen Triple G, get into the mix, and even with Murata, it stuns you. You can't move. I throw all of that, that tough guy, that mojo shit. When you get hit to the body, you're like your whole body, like just stops for a minute. You know what I mean? Like like I'm telling you, and the way Murata hit him and the way he covered up and back all the way to the other side of the ropes, and I was just like, wow, he was backpedaling the whole time. Murata didn't jump on him at that second, which I thought he should. I feel like, man, if Triple G could really, get a good body shot, I think, I think if Canelo could get a good body shot on Triple G, man, I really think it could be lights out, man. I really do, man, because the more you study Triple G and the more you study Canelo throws awesome body shots. I like the way some of his body shots, are thrown. You know what I mean? I think they're underrated. Look at the Amir Khan. I mean, I got to throw my boy out there. I mean, the guy's been tossed around like a rag doll, man. The guy Amir Khan's been tossed around, but I got to throw that one out there. The guy, Canelo, was hitting Khan to the body so hard that it was red right there. And then he started trying to, cover up the body, and it left him susceptible to his chin. And that's when Canelo had that one punch knockout of the year type of punch with Amir Khan. It all started with the body, with Canelo. And so what I'm saying is, I think if Canelo can start with the body early, it could possibly leave his Gennadi's chin susceptible as well. You know what I mean? I just think that, and you guys got to understand, this fight is not at 175, so Canelo can backtrack and come back down to 168. I feel like where he could be more efficient than at 175, man. How do you think his reign at 175 will go? Do you think he'll go back up to 175, or do you think Canelo will stay at 168 after this fight is over?
I mean, it like with Canelo, it's like he's gonna be fighting viable commercial opponents. It's like saying, will Tom Cruise be in a movie that gets awarded an Academy Award or something? It's like he's never really going to exist in the light heavyweight or the super middleweight division, even if he's the guy. It's like he's going to fight the guys that make him the most money or make the biggest impact on the world or have a storyline. If he wins this fight, which I think most people think, I think we're looking at a catchweight fight between him and Dimitri Bivol if Bivol were to beat Zordo. And I believe
that's a big if. That's a big if.
That's a big if because I think Zordo, if I were to set, I personally favor Zordo in that fight. And I think Zordo calling out Bivol kind of tells you where Zordo feels the fight is. You know what I mean? But they have sparred.
Even with all that's being said and done, I've said on this show since 2018, Beterbiev is the best light heavyweight. So
I mean,
all arrows need to be pointing in his direction because he's got the more stakes in the light heavyweight division. He's got the more belts. He's got the more hardware. He's got the most accolades. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but boxing's not a sport.
He retired an undefeated champion. I mean, he retired.
Yeah, Alex the Nail,
undefeated champion.
Heavily touted, one that was being viewed and trained by Teddy Atlas, and vignettes were being made about him. They had whole social content around him. But the thing about Beterbiev is, this is the thing about boxing, right? There's Ioka at the flyweight division. He's a very good fighter right now. No one cares about what's going on in his career, and the reason is, it just comes down to fight dates and how often you fight and how big the fights are. Beterbiev's last fight was against Joe Smith Jr. I mean, it's a good fight, I guess, because it's a belt, but we all kind of knew. But at some point, Beterbiev was going to win. Most people thought stoppage, but no one was. I don't think there were many fight fans going, man, I wonder how this is going to go. They were just like, I wonder how Beterbiev's going to fight. And I think the issue is Beterbiev is in one of those situations where everyone in that division knows he's the guy and no one wants to be the guy to see if they're that guy. Everyone's waiting to see that slippage. You know what I mean? They want that slippage from Beterbiev.
Isn't that why you're in boxing?
This is this era. Like, I just read a press release that Stephen Fulton doesn't want to fight Raiz Aleem because it's something to the effect of he's corny. He hasn't earned it. I mean, Aleem is the highest
earned it. Wow. Like I remember interviewing I remember interviewing Stephen Fortin before he was a world champion.
But
I
see this.
interviewed him and I seen the hunger in his eyes. And the only person that would give Stephen Fortin a chance when we was at the MGM Grand and I interviewed him was an African fighter or a fighter from like Zimbabwe or somewhere. I don't want to butcher his name, but he fought him for like the IBO strap. Okay, and it was at the MGM Grand. He wound up stopping the guy, you know, but that was the only chance he could get at a world title at the time, and I feel like his camp thought he was ready. So I mean, I know he knows how it has to feel to be able to like wait and wait and wait and not, you know, have champions.
But see, that's the
you know what I
problem,
mean?
Corey Lee Boxing, is like a guy like Stephen Fulton wanted his opportunity. No one gave it to Stephen. Now Stephen's like, dude, I want to get paid. I want to fight and get my undisputed or a big fight
I feel
because he had to wait. But the problem is now there's guys that are what Stephen Fulton used to be. It's Raiz Aleem, it's Luis Neri. And now they're sitting there.
Them dudes are a little tricky too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
This guy, Stephen Fulton, deserves a big fight, right? Because he's been grinding his butt off. But the problem is, it's like what we saw. Exactly. And then you also have like Errol Spence, right? Errol wanted Keith Thurman. Thurman didn't give him that fight for whatever reason. Now when Spence gets in that position, now he's like, okay, I'll make these fights, but I got to maximize being in this position because when I was on my come up, nobody was just handing me a spot at that. We live in an era where it's not just like, am I the best? It's like, well, now I'm the top dog. Now I have political capital. Now I have power. You have to wait until I decide you can do it. There's a whole narcissistic, like, you need to understand I deem you worthy now in boxing. It's not just about being the man. I personally don't like it. It's just that's where we're at as a sport.
Shout out Trap Media, man. Hit the thumbs up. Bitch, yeah, yeah, man, do that, man. But yeah, you know, I feel you on the Better Beef situation. I feel like politics has a big play in this, but you gotta understand, man. Better Beef is with the one of the best promoters in Top Rank, or I say best promoter is I feel like is you know, your personal opinion. You know, at
a very public, nationally seen promoter. You're on ESPN, very visible. So you're on a very visible network. Like, I think that's a problem with Canelo Golovkin, right? Is I know a lot of people, like my friend Boxrick Gray, doesn't like the shoulder programming. I love shoulder programming for big fights. I want Canelo Golovkin shoulder programming. I want preview shows. I don't know if the zone is provided. I just want something. Like, if I'm going to put $100 into this and invest my life into it.
I don't even think they gave the Triple G Canelo a 24/7 this time. I seen that trilogy preview, but that wasn't a 24/7.
And I don't believe Golovkin even had a media day. And it's like, these are little things that as a fight fan, I want. If you're going to build me a very high premium, I want to go through the motions. I want to talk myself into views. I want to see the fighters. And I think the fact that it's on a streaming platform that doesn't interfere with my life, I can watch a football game and not think about Canelo versus Golovkin. It's very anonymous, or I can not encounter it. It's kind of concerning about where boxing is, that one of our biggest stars, it's still a big fight, but it's a big fight to those that love boxing or stumble across boxing. It doesn't feel like it's integrating into the world as easily as like an HBO fight.
Man, I'm gonna tell you, man, the build up to this Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G fight, you guys, I feel like should have been astronomical. It should have been, the build up should be so crazy because the first two fights were technically, you know, physically and mentally kind of crazy. I mean, both guys got underneath each other's skin. I mean, I feel like this is a very personal fight. They still don't really like each other. You know, and I just really feel like, you know, this had the chance to be like a rivalry type of fight, but the build-up wasn't there. I feel like, you know, they dropped the ball. Eddie Hearn and them dropped the ball. Is this Eddie Hearn trying to get his fucking money back that he's going to potentially lose because Canelo lost to Bivol? Yeah, that's a possibility. You know, Eddie Hearn's got to check his pockets as well, man. But the promotion leading up into this fight, to touch on Lukey's, you know, statement, I feel like it's been kind of, you know, cheesy at best. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
well, it's lazy, Corey Lee. It's lazy. It like, This is one of the biggest moments in boxing for 2022. This is one of the biggest fights that can be made. This is a
Legacy solidifying as well.
legacy solidifying, but also for boxing fans. We as a community, we come together for these tentpole nights where we all buy the pay-per-view. We go on internet platforms like YouTube. We read boxing websites. I'm hitting my microphone. We as a community get together and love these moments, right? And it's like they're basically saying, okay, like I haven't gotten a release on when the media workout was. As far as I know, it's to be determined, and that was yesterday. It's like I don't know what the media workout's going to look like. And it's like these are the motions as fight fans. We want to see a little bit of a story building up. We want to see where Golovkin's at. We want to hear Canelo's redemption story. We want to go through the motions as a fight fan. And this basically the way it's being presented to me, and I can be wrong. I'm not the smartest guy. I don't think I'm the dumbest guy, is that here's the thing is they're basically saying this is a good fight, buy it. They're not selling us the fight. And I think we as fight fans, we want a little theatrics. We want some pro wrestling. We want us to give us something, you know?
How much is it per what are they charging? 85?
So it's $85. I think it's for $84.99 if you don't have DAZN. If you have DAZN, it's $64.99. What I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to go to the movie theaters. It's $20 a pop if you go to the movie theater. You know, that's even if I go with my girlfriend, that's $40 as opposed to $85, you know. Even if we get snacks, that's probably like another $20, that's $60. We're still below that threshold.
Yeah.
It's just this is my other fear, Corey Lee Boxing. Are we getting to a point where $100 pay-per-views are normal? Because that's going to be a thing where like how many people how does the sport grow if we're like, okay, give us a like I mean
Ortiz versus Ruiz
75. 75.
Yeah, I mean that's I remember the Canelos and I mean some of the Floyds were only 50, right? Growing up, right?
Yeah, but I mean this is
inflation.
But it's not just that, right? It's they've phased out standard definition. So you could get a Floyd fight for 50 and then you could get it at 65.99 or whatever for the HD.
The HD,
there's
HD.
no longer standard.
HD.
Everything's quote unquote HD, and then inflation's moved the price up. We're getting to a point where like we're gonna have basically 12 pay-per-views this year, right? Not many fight fans can afford 12 pay-per-views. So people are either gonna have to go to extreme.
That's almost $1,200.
That's over $1,000, right? That's almost, and it's like you're either forcing fight fans to pick which fights they want to see, which that's a dangerous game because you're basically saying, hey man, not all these fights are important. You can have a life. You don't need to be a boxing fanatic. Just pick and choose. And then by then some guys might go, I don't need to see the fight next week. And then all of a sudden they're not watching the sport, or people have to do it with whatever means they do. They might have to stream it through some shady website, and that's never good because now you're endangering your financial things on many different fronts. Or you have to buy all the pay-per-views and invite friends over. And at a certain point, you may feel like as a consumer, you're not getting your value. It's very, very, as someone that watches like the NBA, you can just watch the NBA, pay your cable bill, and then if you drop $100 this year, you get NBA League Pass. Boxing has to realize we're competing against the NBA. We're competing against the NFL. They offer a greater value for basically a better product that offers better competition. If we want to be relevant, we have to compete with other sports.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, man, that was a good, man, we had to break that down, man. We kind of got to the pricing and all that shit, man. But it is the time now, man. I want to switch and I want to talk about this Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua showdown in the heavyweight division, the most exciting division in boxing, man. I mean, because let's be honest, Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence ain't beating Joshua. Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence ain't beating Tyson Fury. So they're at the pinnacle, man. I feel like, you know, like a lion is at the, end of the food chain. I mean, you got to understand, man. I feel like these guys are the top of the food chain. The Wilders, the Joshuas, the Furies, the Usyks, they're at the top of the food chain. These two guys are, if not one of the two biggest heavyweights in the division. Okay, you got Joshua at 6'6", 255 ish. And then you got Tyson Fury at 6'9" to 6'10", 275, 280. Depending on, or over 300, depending on what state of mind Fury's in. You got you got to know that too, man. The guy's a little kooky sometimes, man. But with that being said, do you think that this fight can be made, Lukey? And I mean,
why not?
Are you putting your stock on Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua going down? Is Lukey?
I mean, it's such a mismatch, Corey Lee.
Or what?
It's a mismatch. Like Anthony Joshua doesn't, or Tyson Fury doesn't have to train to beat Anthony Joshua. Like he could train like 3 weeks and probably stop him in a few rounds. There's a huge talent gap. No, I mean, it's true. Like if you look at the two fighters, there's a huge talent gap. So it's like, I mean, I feel like Fury's going to fight all the guys. Inevitably, this fight, I don't think it's going to happen. It would be great if it happens. I honestly think Fury, like Joshua's best chance is to train as hard as he can, because Fury probably doesn't think he needs to train very hard for this guy. Like he's going to lean on him. He's going to walk him down. Joshua, the big flaw with Joshua that keeps showing its head, some of it's mental, but he can't transition defense to offense. So he's either all offensive or all defensive. A guy like Tyson Fury is going to exploit the hell out of that.
Move on the swivel. You feel like Joshua was tailor-made for Tyson Fury? He's
tailor-made for basically elite fighters. Elite fighters are going to beat Joshua, because it's like, as long.
But did you have this same energy, Lukey, before the Tyson?
I mean, when he lost, when him and Wilder were going to fight, I was the one that said Joshua is going to mess this fight up because he's going to get knocked out. And everyone was saying Wilder's going to get knocked out first. The issue is...
Who did you pick in? Hold on. Who did you pick in the Joshua versus Usyk one?
Usyk.
Okay. All right.
I think I did. Okay. I mean, we'd have to go back, but
we gotta go back. We gotta see, Luke. We gotta see,
but I mean, the thing is with him is he's very robotic, and a lot of his wins come from him being physically stronger than people. So it's like, it's not really the skill set, it's his physical strength winning the fights. And he's had a lot of the benefit of the doubt, right? He's a multi-million-dollar business. So people really want to see him. He's like the LeBron James of boxing in the UK. So it's like, he's had a lot of favorable matchups. The Joe Smith fight, or Joe Parker fight, was the one that really troubled me, because against Joe Parker, he was struggling with that jab. A persistent jab was really, really giving Joshua problems. And it was because he didn't feel comfortable when the jab came to catch, shoot, fire. He had to reset, get into his position, and then hulk up and then charge. And that was a big issue, because it's like, man, Joseph Parker really gave Joshua a problem. Joseph Parker's an outstanding heavyweight, but people were saying this is like a superstar. This is the next big guy. And it's like, that was troubling. The reason Ruiz, I think, won the first fight was he could just transition a slip into an offensive maneuver. Joshua's stuck in place. He's going to throw a punch, and then he has to get out athletically. He's not going to slip a punch and then fire back. And that's going to be what holds him back against a guy like Fury.
So, I mean, with this fight, on the brink of happening, Joshua versus, Tyson Fury, I just want to know, man, like, I know Joshua, I mean, do you have to give any type of, what if Joshua wins this fight? I mean, I'm just.
It would be great for boxing.
I'm hearing all of the things Joshua does is wrong, but what I'm trying to say is, what if Joshua still has that power, and we know Tyson Fury is susceptible to the chin? We've seen him like one of the callers said. I mean, one of the guys said in my comments the other day, Tyson Fury. He remembers when Tyson Fury had a very tight fight
with Steve Cunningham.
No, before that fight, it was
when he was coming up, it was like a 500 fight record guy. It was like a majority decision, right? It was like in 2010.
That was a tough fight. He said that was a tough fight for Tyson Fury. Was that a learning experience, or was that Tyson Fury? You know what I mean?
Let me build on that, because
acceptable to certain punches.
A story I was once told was Evander Holyfield's pro debut was not very good. right? It wasn't all that outstanding. And I was told this story basically to never judge someone in the beginning of their career, because they were like, and that guy came up to a group of people and said, one day I'm going to be the heavyweight world champion. And I want to say he was fighting at light heavyweight or something. And it's like he had a fight where it was like a barn burner back and forth. It was like Rios Alvarado. It was like just punching each other. No. And Evander Holyfield turned into one of the best cruiserweights until Usyk, probably the best cruiserweight ever, and a really good heavyweight. I think you hit the nail on the head when you use the word developmental. Sometimes some of those fights early on, they show your flaws, but they also build the character of a world champion. Like, let me think of a good example of one. I think Andre Ward versus Darnell Boone's a good example of that. Andre Ward was dropped by Darnell Boone, I want to say in Portland. It was just a developmental fight. It was off TV, but he was dropped.
And that meant a lot. That meant a lot in the 8-rounder. That could have swayed it either way. I mean, that, a knockout in a 4-rounder or 8-rounder or even a 6-rounder, which we don't see that much anymore. But even a knockout in any of those, 4, 6, or 8, are detrimental to the scorecards, because, that could sway the – it's so many variables with that. If it's a close fight, the knockdowns could go for the, the underdog.
Yeah, it shows the mental makeup of a fighter, right? Because it's like it's easy now to feel like a speeding train is chasing you rather than you're in control, and the urgency changes. And I think that when you think of Andre Ward,
the dynamic of the fight changes.
Yeah, and especially for like a young fighter, everyone's telling you like, bro, you're going to be a millionaire, you're going to be a world champion.
Yeah.
And now you're in the ring and you're not any of those things anymore. Now it's how much do you want to win? How great. And I think a great guy at that was Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley might be the best one at that. Where it's like
Timothy Bradley, man. Shout out to Timothy Bradley, man. You know what I'm saying?
Tim Bradley's a guy,
shit, but that's it. That's just the way I like him though.
But I mean, it's like if you look at fundamentally what he did, it's hard to say what his elite attribute was, other than he just wanted it more than his opponent. So if those fights got into that type of realm, like the first Pacquiao fight, a lot of people think he didn't win it, but guess what? He created a fight where he could win the fight. He created a fight where the scores were feasible to be that way. And that's an elite attribute, to be a fighter that can. Now, sometimes it hurts you, like with Ruslan. Ruslan, because like he had something to prove, and Ruslan actually had more to prove, and it created an issue. But Tim Bradley's a guy
that was one of my favorite fights of all time.
Oh, that was a great one, and it's like, and because of that fight, right? Tim Bradley's
brutal, man. That fight was brutal.
You know what
I've seen a man in the ring lose his life, man. And Maximum Dedishev, rest in peace to him. I was live at that fight. I remember how brutal that fight was. He was fighting an undefeated Puerto Rican guy, 13-0. Dedishev was 13-0. The Puerto Rican guy had about 12 to 13 knockouts. I think he was 13-0 with 13 knockouts. Dedishev was 13-0 with 11 knockouts. So this is on the collision course. Okay, this is only like a 10-rounder. But it was brutal. Buddy McGirt had to really throw in the towel. And, I just seen at that point in my life, I was just like, man, this is a brutal fight, man.
And shout out to Davashev on my YouTube channel. We actually filmed him in the gym like 6 months before that happened. So I think I have like one of the only Max Davashev in the gym training videos ever.
And I got the only post-fight interview with Buddy McGirt before he went to the hospital. I ran over there and I tried to ask him. Me and the guy from Fight Hype. I think he runs Fighter IQ or some shit. But yeah, me and him went over there, and I was just wanted to know, man, like what made you throw in the towel at that time? Because he threw in the towel, but at that time it was too late. It was already too late. It was too much punishment.
Sabril Matisse, scary guy too. Sabril Matisse is like one of these guys where it's like it's not just one fight.
For real though.
He's got that scariness where it's like he doesn't have the power to knock you out, but he has the power to give you a sustained beating, and it's like a baseball bat. It's like being hit by a bat for 9 consecutive rounds. Like very, very scary, dangerous guy. And it's like what's scary about him is like Malik Hawkins stopped in the corner by Sabril Matisse. And I want to say Betiar Jukmabayev.
Hawkins, man, the Iceman.
Yeah,
This
shout
is
out my
ice
guy, man.
season, but ice man.
And also I think Batir Jukmanbayev, who he fought on Showtime, I believe he was stopped in the corner. So it's like with a guy like Matisse,
brutal stoppages,
yeah,
lot of brutal stoppages.
will stoppages, right? Where it's like the fighters
Yeah.
want to continue, but the coaches are seeing like
They're like,
this
hell
is
no.
not normal. Did like what
Yeah.
that, and I think a guy like Matisse, if ever he, I don't want to put this in the universe, but he's a guy where if ever he tests positive, I feel, or if there was ever like a controversy like Margarito, I think he'd become one of the most hated boxers ever because his style is so grueling. If anything, like he has to have a very clean reputation because his style is one of the most like, it
gruesome.
Makes you question if you want to be a boxing fan. Like it's almost
it makes you question if you want to be a fucking boxer. Yeah.
Well, you know what he feels like?
Do you want to go into the ring with something like that? Is this what you want to sign up for?
He feels like
punches around, type shit. Like about 80 punches around. I mean, the guy throws a lot of punches, and not all of them hit, but the ones that do, you feel them. You feel them the next day and the day after.
His mentality reminds me kind of a street guy, where he's going in there and he's like, I don't care that you don't know my name. I'm going to make my name off of you. He's like, I actually want to be anonymous. I want to go in there and take everything you have. Like he has the mentality of like, oh, it's cool. This is where you work out. No, this is where I work out now. He just wants to take something from someone. And I think it goes from like a lot of boxers view it as a sport. He's a guy that I think that if you ever interviewed him, I think there's something really dark about him. Like he's battled some demons, or you have to be the way that he fights, because he's not fighting as a sport. He's fighting something that deeply troubles him, in my opinion.
You think so?
I think so, because it's, and I want to put this out there. I have no suspicions about him having anything illegal about his style.
Put that out there.
No. I'm not saying
for the clean fighters out there, man. We salute you.
No. I'm just saying, like, the only reason I bring that up is imagine if that were to happen. Like, that would just like, I feel like that would give us all as boxing fans cold chills, right? Because of how devastating he is. It wouldn't be unlike maybe when
Joe Rogan. That's what Joe Rogan was talking about on his lead up to this Canelo Triple G fight. He said, "You got to be kidding me." He said, Joe Rogan said this, and he said this clear as day. He said, "You got to be kidding me if Triple G and Canelo don't have, PED guys in their corner and stuff like that." That's what Joe Rogan said.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but Joe Rogan's a lot more rich than me, so like he can feel a lot more freedom.
He brought up a very good point. He said, "Look at Triple G's body at 40. He said, "You trying to tell me that's all natural?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I don't know." He said,
but Corey Lee, here's the other thing. Give me like 30 million to run a boxing camp at 40 years old, and I bet you I can look pretty good. You know what I mean? Like,
come up with some shit, man.
But I'm saying like
legal shit, because Joe Rogan said legal and illegal. He went to both ways.
But I don't believe Canelo or Golovkin going into this fight are doing anything illegal. I never believe fighters are doing illegal stuff unless they're caught, because the way I view doing illegal drugs, to me, that's a heavy jacket. That's like calling someone a rapist. That's like calling someone a racist. It's a heavy label. And if you put that coat on somebody, and that coat has Velcro. Yeah. That coat has super glue. It's not coming off. It's a career changer. Margarito will never be a Hall of Famer. He'll never be a great fighter to me because of what he did. And it's not. But I mean that he could have
hurt somebody. He could have hurt Miguel Cotto in that fight.
But I mean, his whole legacy to me, based on what happened,
crazy, bro.
It's completely changed. And I think that's a heavy burden.
Boxing's already dangerous, and you're trying to level your odds where your gloves are pretty much, just say your gloves are both at 100%. You're putting your gloves at 180. And his gloves are still at 100%. I mean, so you got, even if his heat on them gloves aren't that concussive, just the blow alone with the hand wraps and shit is just, I could only imagine how Miguel Cotto felt in that fight, man. Like, man, is this guy really this powerful? It's like, you know?
No, I mean it's just like as fans, we don't want to think about the humanity of the sport, right? We want to believe these are Street Fighter characters. We pick them on the screen. It's like there's Ryu, here's whoever, Blanca,
And they're
and
gonna
then
have
they
the
go in.
same
They
energy
go in
every time, every fight, man.
same
That's not,
character, same
yeah,
attributes every fight. Every camp is
that's not,
good, and we don't realize these guys
man.
are probably half of the time miserable, somewhat
Miserable as
nervous
fuck,
because
bro.
they can't control the outcome, right? Like both Canelo and Golovkin, whether we believe it or not, they're both probably pretty nervous because they don't really
Oh
know who
hell
they're
yeah.
getting on the other side. They don't
No,
know
they
what
don't.
that guy's going to be like. And the worst
Well, I
thing that
don't
could
know. I'm
happen.
gonna be honest. I don't know. Not to keep cutting you off, but I don't know because Canelo seen something. I think their camp seen something. I think that's why they took this rematch. They
Yeah,
could have
but
waited
he
another
looks a
fight.
little
They could
arrogant
have
to
waited
me.
another fight. They could have waited another fight. They could have waited another fight. Canelo and Eddie Hearn jumped right into this fight right after the Bivol fight. That showed me a lot. That showed me a lot. That showed me a lot in the Canelo camp, and that showed me a lot that they seen something. So to touch off of what you were just saying, that you feel like, both guys don't really know what they're looking at or know what they're seeing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think Canelo's got a bullseye on what he's seeing in Golovkin. He sees something there that he can take that what he's seen and capitalize off of it. That's why they took this fight. I'm just gonna be honest, man. Canelo's more of an opportunist at times. He's playing the
He's a businessman.
Mayweather playbook, the
He's like
Mayweather
Keith
playbook,
Thurman. He's
the
like Keith
Mayweather,
Thurman.
yeah, the Mayweather
As
playbook.
a fighter, Keith Thurman's all right. As a businessman, A+. Keith's going to be ducking and dodging, maneuver himself around the sport just to get that one big fight. He's going to give you a good. But like, I feel like Canelo's like a politician. He's going to. Where's my constituent for this fight? Where does my base want me to go for this fight? Where am I going to get the most supporters?
Well, after you start making, millions like Keith Thurman has made and like Gennady Golovkin has made, it's almost like they got to set a standard. It's a standard that's set. So I feel like right now Canelo Alvarez is at a point where he's not trying to make nothing under 30 million a fight, or something crazy like that, And it's Triple G, I'm pretty sure he might not have gotten. I mean, I don't even know how much he could have got for that Steve Rose fight. I mean, what do you think? Probably a couple, maybe a couple mil. I doubt that though. I mean, Steve Rose is not really known like that. I mean, he was an undefeated Canadian fighter, I believe, and he wasn't really known like that. But I just feel like these fighters get used to their paydays, and they don't want that to affect. They want to keep getting those same Canelo paydays. Period. And that's what Triple G wants to do.
Well, the problem with boxing right now is, and it's not rocket science, it's ghetto business hour, right? It's guys make a lot of money, and if you're somewhere near the top, you want to make as much money as possible because you can't box forever, and you want to get as much money as possible. And once you make as much money, you don't want to fight someone that's going to give you less money than that. And what it does is it creates like when Caltrans is working on a road. Remember when it goes from a 2-lane road to a single road, and they're cutting off the tree? Well, that's what boxing becomes when there's log jams where everyone's waiting to fight the money man. And I just wish that we could incentivize fighters to, like, a Boots Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz would be a great fight for a world title if one of those fights became vacant. I wish the money could appear to properly pay those guys for that fight to occur.
But you got to understand, right now, boxing is we're in the digital age, where a lot of fighters are getting paid with the app, and it's unheard of. It's unprecedented. The era that we're in right now. Triple G and Canelo Alvarez is on a fucking boxing app. And it's like it looks like that's the direction that this is going. I mean, I don't know how long DAZN can uphold this, these contracts and shit like that, and keep paying these fighters. I feel like they're losing money, over and over and over. But hey, man, they had to go to pay-per-view, and I think that's gonna help their situation out.
I mean, Corey Lee Boxing, is is DAZN gonna get Canelo once this contract's over? Do you think
That's
he'll
a big
return to it?
question, man. That's a big question, bro. And that's a really good question. That's a really good question because the more I study these two fighters and the more I study just Canelo, just when his in his own entity, and just the brand of Canelo, I think Canelo could do so much better than DAZN. I could almost think that Canelo could just fight on any network he wanted to fight on. Dare I say?
Let's take it a step further. Look,
He
there's
was just
things
on PBC a couple fights ago. Let's get that understood too. I mean, he did do a one-off with Plant.
I mean, I'm looking
and they saying that couldn't be done with the PBC. A lot of people said that couldn't be done with the PBC. Canelo came in, made his statement, and left.
Look, let's dispel any rumors of any fight not being able to be done. Every fight can be made. Just fighters have to make concessions to make the fight happen. And that's the issue, is oftentimes a fighter doesn't want to go to maybe the PBC because they might not get either preferential treatment, or as much money because there's something that network has that they want to hold on to. So you're going to be in a rock and a hard place. A great example of this happening from years past would be like guys like Terence Crawford going to the UK to fight Ricky Burns, Errol Spence going to fight Kell Brook. Do you think networks wanted these fights to technically happen? Probably not. But the fighters forced these bouts to happen. They wanted the fight.
Yeah, now, man, I think we're at a time and place now, man, where, the fighters are trying to get paid, especially the top guys, and once you start, like, all I'm saying is once these fighters start hitting a money threshold, they don't want to go underneath that. Just like Charlo. I mean, he's probably in odds right now. He's got his own situation going on outside of the ring. Jamal Charlo, I'm talking about. But a lot of these guys are starting to become businessmen. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that. I respect that. I believe a lot of these fighters need to be getting paid well more compensated than they were. I mean, you got guys like, Ernie Shavers and, other guys that, maybe didn't leave with much, when they left this earth, and it's like, as a fighter in a gladiator sport, these guys need to get paid top-notch fights, top-notch money. This is
I feel that.
Match.
I feel that. This is my only issue, and I'm 100% pro fighter. I just want the money to make sense where it's coming from. So, like, if you're getting paid top-notch dollars, you also have to bring in top-notch entertainment. You have to also conduct interviews as a top-notch media attraction, the way a star would do that. And you have to also...
So let me ask you this, because I'm glad you touched on that. Like, you got to, uphold your, media obligations as well. How do you feel about Terence Crawford not really doing media that much?
Well, I mean, it's obviously hurt. It's obviously
hurt. Have you ever got an interview with Terence Crawford?
I mean, I don't know if it technically was one. Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious he doesn't enjoy doing media, right? And it's like the issue is Crawford's one of the best fighters, but he hasn't figured out a way to exist in the boxing space the way his peers and fighters see him. And I think that if I were a producer working with Crawford on these fights, I think that what people want to see is just every show just question if he could beat the other fighter and let the real Crawford come out. What's most interesting about Crawford is his competitive nature, like a Michael Jordan. We want to see how much he hates losing. Like, that's what's interesting. And the more he's reserved and doesn't show that, I think the more we go, okay, there's nothing to see here, right? He's a good fighter, but there's nothing to see. And I think it's a true shame that I think Terence Crawford's probably one of the most interesting American fighters currently, but the story, for whatever reason, has only been told a certain way. And I think we want to see the drive. We want to see him in a gym chasing a guy to a water fountain.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. I've seen some of Terence Crawford's, and I just want to touch on this before we wrap the show up because I'm ready to get off the show. I got to go handle family shit before work tonight. I go skating every Wednesday night, man. Fun fact of Corey Lee, man. I go roller skating every Wednesday night, Lukey, man. We got to get you in roller skating. If I ever visit Cali or if you ever visit the DMV, we got to get Lukey in the skate.
Yeah, I mean, Lukey's down. And by the way, also shout out to the DMV, my man Jamal Harvey, Oxon Hill Boxing Club. He fights tonight.
Okay,
and Lamont.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone from the DMV needs to support Jamal Harvey, young guy. Also, shout out my guy, the other Iceman, who is Jordan Roach and Lamont Roach Sr. and Lamont Roach Jr. and my guy, Benjamin Johnson. Love Big Ben. Really talented USA boxer. So before we forget, I wanted to shout out that DMV area because I see you.
Yeah, let's go. The DMV. Let's get it. So yeah, man. So with that being said, like, how do you feel about this? The last subject. How do you feel about this Terrence Crawford versus Earl Spence? I mean, I wouldn't be right if I didn't talk about this fight, man, Lukey. I mean, I wouldn't be right.
Yeah, get your views, bro. This is where everyone wants to tune in. They're driving, they're eating lunch, and they're saying, "Oh God, they're going to talk about this fight. We've been talking about it our whole workday." I mean, everywhere I go, if anyone knows I'm the boxing guy, hey, is Errol gonna fight Bud? Like, it's like the only question I get, right?
They ask me that at work all the time, bro. They ask me that shit at work all the time.
And then you get like the conspiracies. Well, I don't think Errol wants to fight him. Well, I don't think Terrence wants to. No, both of these guys want to fight each other. It's some behind the scenes issue, right?
They say that a lot too, yeah.
It's just the fight that needs to happen for
Blue Blood Sports, what's happening, bro? What's going on with you, man? You already know, man. We getting it in. We burning one, man. We on the burn right now, Blue Blood, man. Salute. I see what you doing, Blue Blood, man. Keep up the good work, man. You know what I'm saying?
So I just wanted to say, with this fight, it's the fight that needs to happen because like the whole welterweight division is in a logjam because of this fight. As we were saying, like guys like Keith Thurman are not going to fight guys below them.
Just beating at their door.
Well,
man.
And we want to see how good Boots is. And I know a lot of people have been critical. Oh, he hasn't taken the step up. Boots is saying he wants the step up. It's just guys aren't affording him that luxury.
He did some wild shit to Lipinets, man. He's
doing everything
Garcia couldn't even do that to Lipinets.
But he's doing everything we ask a great fighter to do with the fights put in front of him.
Shout out to Lipinets. He got a win after that Boots loss.
Over Omar Figueroa. Yeah, but I mean, like, the thing is, Boots is a guy who, to me, it's like him and Shakur Stevenson feel like the future of boxing, right?
But is Boots ready right now?
Who cares if he
too fast?
We've seen that. But if a young fighter says, "I want the title," and they're in the rankings, and the ranking body says,
"Every young fighter's gonna say that." Every young fighter's gonna say that.
If this is a sport, if Virgil Ortiz is the number one contender, it's not up to a world champion to say, "Hey, man, you're not ready." No, the sanctioning body is saying he's your number one mandate. We need to get some of these unanswered questions answered, whether it's seeing Boots Ennis fight Virgil Ortiz, Speedy Ellis. We need to see these guys face at a next level of competition because I believe in Boots. I think he's the future, but we need some great fights with him. We can't just have him fighting these fights where he beat a guy in 2 rounds and he didn't get back because of probably dates and whatever. But it's a shame we haven't seen him a time before because he hasn't taken punishment. He's one of the most compelling fighters in boxing. And I think everyone's excited about his trajectory. And I think that what sucks is the longer Spence and Crawford doesn't happen, there's a ripple effect on the guys, the next generation, whether it's Speedy Ellis, Virgil Ortiz, Boots Ennis, Stanionis, all these guys, there's going to be a ripple effect where they don't face each other or it takes longer because they're all waiting for these big fights at the top.
Yeah, man. So, with that being said, I mean, let's talk about the 2 top guys. We talking about the road to the top. Let's talk about who's at the top. Terrence Crawford, man. Earl Spence Jr. Break down this fucking fight, Lukey, man.
So you want me to pick a win? Okay.
How do you see this fight going and why defensively? Why, man? Why do you see it going down like that?
I mean, I favor Crawford, but I'll talk through 2 scenarios. I think there's 2 scenarios of the fight. I think Crawford is the more well-rounded fighter who has more tools to adjust in a fight, and he's shown time and time again that he's able to make an adjustment on top of an adjustment. I haven't ever really seen Errol do that in a fight. Errol kind of reminds me, and he doesn't fight the same way as like an Inoue, where he's physically strong and powerful, but like let's say a guy like an Usyk or I don't know who's another world level top boxer. Like Usyk is kind of the guy that stands out to me. I guess Terrence Crawford would be my other example, which isn't good. Is it feels like the really elite boxer is probably going to trouble Errol because he kind of has that style where it's like he's physically bigger, he's coming forward, he wants to put you on the rope, stick you, and then just mug you. The problem is
physically grueling style.
Physically
grueling style.
And that's the issue, right? Can Terrence physically handle the grueling style of Errol? Because I think skill set for skill set, most people would say Terrence has more skills or more attributes in terms of movement and getting a guy around a ring, but Errol's just physically probably stronger. Even though guys say, okay, Terrence is very, very strong, he wrestled. Errol at times looks like he's 190 pounds. He looks like he could play football or he grew up playing football and then is shrinking down to the 47 division. I think there's two worlds this fight goes. I think there's a world where Terrence kind of boxes Spence and it looks like the Victor Postol fight where he has moments where he turns it up. And I think there's another world where it's like, this is the world I think most people want. It's a grueling, brutal fight where if it gets grueling and physically tough, I think that's the fight that favors Spence, because the more it becomes about who's the bigger, stronger man, the bigger, stronger man will win. I will say this, Corey Lee Boxing, after the car crash, I think Errol Spence is a better fighter, and I think he's been fighting with more urgency after the car crash.
You think so?
I think so. I think that I'm seeing things after the crash.
A lot of people have said that, he hasn't been the same fighter since his So
I think he's actually become a better fighter.
And a lot of so I've seen some hardcore say that as well, but a lot of casuals are saying, what happened to the knockouts? What happened to this? What happened to that? I mean, this guy's been in there with big time opposition.
Well, I mean, who stopped Danny Garcia? Like, who stops Danny Garcia? Like, nobody stops Danny Garcia. So it's like, where did knockouts go?
Danny Swift Garcia, he had his fight on my fucking birthday, and yes, the fuck I went to the Barclays Center to watch him fight Jose Benavidez Jr. So
I mean, look, it's like when you fight a guy like Errol Spence fought a couple of world level fighters, guys that you don't typically stop. And if the fans
in that Danny Garcia fight, a lot of people said some of those rounds could have been, that was a kind of a close fight as well, though, too.
Well, if I remember, and I'm going off of memory, it felt like in the first 3 rounds, there was a real big battle of who hits harder. So they both were loading up, and it was like, I want to take them because they were like, this is a battle of who's going to control the middle of the ring. And it looked like Errol eventually won that, but Danny made Errol think a lot about that. And because of that, I think we saw Errol, I guess I shouldn't say something like this is a perception. I don't have the stats in front of me. It felt like Errol threw less punches, but I don't think that's because of the wreck. I think that's because he had respect for Danny's power. So that's the way I saw it from perceiving.
Like you said in the Triple G Canelo fight, a lot of people say that they want to touch Triple G up to the body, but you got to go through hell to get to heaven. That's what you were saying.
Yep.
That's what Lukey was saying.
I love that expression. Sometimes you got to go through it to get to it. And, that's an issue, right? Because it's like
Crawford has to kind of go through that to get to Earl Spence's, midsection, or, what I mean?
Sometimes the physically tougher, more angry person wins a fight. Sometimes it's just that simple. Sometimes the angrier man who hits harder will win the fight.
Terrence Crawford is an angry mother.
And that's always an X factor, right? You don't want the nice guy in a good fight, like that's why I'm a little nervous about Canelo Golovkin. Golovkin seems like the angrier man. You don't want to bet against the angrier man a lot of times because it's like sometimes boxing, like it's not good to fight with emotion, but these guys can take it out. But the angry person in a fight, like if it's a street fight, you don't want to fight the angry guy, right? And that kind of carries over to boxing a little bit. You don't want to fight the angry guy.
Yeah, you don't want to fight the. Go ahead. We got 5 more minutes left. Go ahead and break down the fight, and then I'm gonna say my last things, and then I'm gonna head out.
Which fight am I breaking down?
You breaking down the Earl Spence versus Terrence Crawford showdown that us boxing fans yearn for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that the big thing I'm looking at is just going to be like how both guys take the training camp. Like, I'm going to be curious if like Terrence Crawford maybe goes to California and trains with Snack with Victor Conti for a little bit. I'm going to be curious if Crawford moves his camp to Las Vegas. I'm going to be curious where Errol conducts his camp. I'm going to be curious who you bring in for sparring partners. Does anyone bring in a Boots Ennis? Does anyone bring in a Virgil Ortiz? Who are the guys? Like, is it Jamal James a guy that's brought in? I'm going to look at that type of stuff. When the fight happens, I'm expecting Crawford to win some early rounds. I know that's counterintuitive because people view him as a slow starter. I'm just curious to see how Crawford handles the pressure of Errol, because I think Errol's big thing that he does very well is he might not be the fastest starter, but he is relentless and he fights a lot like Virgil Ortiz, where he puts pressure, and more pressure. And not unlike Triple G, right, with Errol Spence, people love to kind of maybe say it's not the most oh, he's not a boxer, this, that, and a third. He is a boxer. It's just people love to glorify fighting on your back foot. So what Errol Spence does is he's very defensively sound and he knows how to put a lot of pressure on you. And if you start to slow down, that's when he really, really starts to work. And I think to steal your thunder, I think the story of the fight will be, can Errol Spence be effective with body shots and physicality against Terrence Crawford? The answer to that question will probably decide the outcome of the fight.
Wow, man. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good analysis, man. But I just think right now Terrence Crawford is the meaner motherfucker. Terrence Crawford is, I feel like he's gonna have the best training camp he's probably ever had, and maybe so will Earl Spence. I'm not hating on Earl Spence, and I'm not, but until I see these guys weigh in, until I see all the breakdowns of the fight leading up, which I hope we get a couple 24/7s, which I'm pretty sure we will. This is probably gonna be the biggest fight in our decade. Or so far, you know what I mean? In the past, yeah, I feel like this has got to be higher than Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, man. I mean, I hope the numbers do well.
For us, but remember, I think it's more like Andre Ward, Chad Dawson in terms of where it sits in the sport. But I think for the hardcore fight fans, we've been starving for who's the greatest welterweight since Floyd Mayweather. We want this question answered, and I hope the winner of this becomes a cultural icon in America. I hope the winner of this fight matters.
But
because
will Terrence Crawford really be that, though? I mean, let's be honest.
I think
man.
he could be, because I think that this would be a major accomplishment. And it's like, for Terrence to be a star, he needs a major cultural moment that a lot of people tune in to see his greatness. I don't think it's going to happen based on an interview, but I do think if he has a tremendous performance, I think people would embrace him as this is one of the best boxers of this generation.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest and touch on that. Right now, I think Terrence Crawford. Just to touch on the fight, I think Terrence Crawford can get it done against Earl Spence. He's gonna have to go through, pretty much go through hell to get to heaven. Pretty much one of those situations. And what I mean by that is he's got to go through a lot, in training camp. But I feel like a lot of these two fighters, pretty much is what you see is what you get. I mean, not one training camp is gonna change these guys like 100% totally. I mean, pretty much what you see so far is pretty much what you're gonna pretty much be getting come fight night. Now you might get a couple different looks of each fighter. We're gonna know. I know we're gonna see the switch stance in Terrence Crawford, and I know with Earl Spence, I know that you're gonna get that grueling, mauling, brawling type of style. But he can jab as well. I mean, if the jab is working for Earl Spence, why not keep using it? But I feel like with Terrence Crawford, the switch hitting is gonna disrupt Earl Spence. The switch hitting of Terrence Crawford, being that he can switch southpaw and orthodox, and he could do it with an elite level efficiency. I feel like, man, these two guys are on a collision course. And right now, it's looking like the only thing that's holding these two guys up is the networks. So they're saying Fox is having a deal.
But Corey Lee, let me say something right here. That's what we're being told as fans, right? And remember, when information like that gets leaked out, what is it? it is political pressure to put pressure on someone in a public atmosphere. So we don't know what it is, but the reason that information is being made public is to put pressure on someone. We don't know who that someone is, but there's no reason business goes to the public unless there's a political move.
I'm gonna tell you right now, man. This fight is gonna be so massive. I cannot wait. Hopefully, we get the right build up like we should have got for this Triple G Canelo fight. A lot of people know about this fight coming up, but I feel like even more could know about it. You know what I mean? I feel like they might have squandered a couple 100,000 views or a couple 100,000 buyers for this fight with the promotion. And I hope we get this. I hope we get top notch elite Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather type of promotion for Earl Spence, Terrence Crawford. They deserve it, man. They deserve it.
Me too. And breaking news, it sounds like Triller's out of the boxing game.
So Triller is done, man. They had a short reign. A short reign. Damn, man, boxing eats these fucking promoters alive, dude. And the money that they lose on some of these fights are crazy. Because you gotta give some of these fighters the mandatory minimum. You know what I mean? And Triller was given. From what I was hearing, Triller was paying these guys pretty good. You know what I mean?
I think the issue is, Corey, on top of a mandatory minimum, I don't think they understand what market value is in boxing, and they don't scale things towards like how much the fighters are drawing. And then they're locked.
Where's the fight going to be at?
Yeah, where's the fight going to be?
Location.
And they lock a fighter in for maybe a $500,000 contract, and then they start going, wait, like that works once a year. But like if we put him in the second time,
in his hometown.
Yeah, it works in his hometown, right?
Outside of his hometown.
But then we try to take the show on the road and we want to put him in with a less sexy opponent. And then it's like, well, this is more like a fight that should be scaled for maybe $100,000. They're like, okay, what do we do to make this work? Do we get a much worse? And that's where boxing always kind of struggles, is like we set these market value points to a point where it's like the fans end up being the person that has to pay for the salaries that were probably negotiated crazy.
So with that being said, man, I have got to go, man. Me and Lukey could keep going on for another hour, guaranteed. If I didn't have these things I got to do before I go skating tonight. Let everybody know where to follow you. If you want to, Lukey, you can drop your link in the comment section, man, so everybody can follow you. And yeah, man, I mean, this is an awesome show, man. We burned for an hour and almost 15 minutes, man. So we got a couple good subjects, you guys. We got Tyson Fury, pretty much Tyson Fury, Joshua. We got Spence versus Crawford, and we got Triple G versus Canelo. So what's your pick? What's your final pick on Canelo with Triple G? Let the fans
Canelo split decision. Yeah, Canelo split decision. That's what I like. I like another split decision. I think close fight. You can follow me at Lukey Boxing on Twitter. I've got a Substack, lukeyboxing.substack.com. I write on ITR Boxing, got a YouTube, ITR Boxing, and I have a book, Inside the Ropes of Boxing, out this Saturday on Amazon. So any support is great.
Hey, and my pick for the Canelo Triple G, you guys, is Canelo KO 10. Yeah, so we're going to see. I'm going for a late stoppage on Canelo, man. We'll see. You heard it here first, ITR Lukey, man. So,
well, I mean, one of us will be right, because I don't think Canelo's going to lose, so we'll figure out which one it is.
All right, bro, man. Nice doing the show with you, man. Have a great day, and peace out, you guys.